Okay, Rochelle.
Great. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our 5th virtual Pave the Way. I'm Rochelle Sharp, Deputy with the Student Achievement Council. We know a good number of our attendees this morning are from Western Washington, where we're bracing for inclement weather. We might get anywhere from nothing to 85 inches. We just don't know which way that will go. I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to jump right into it. We've been doing virtual Pave the Ways this past year. This was our big in-person conference held each year for the last, I think, 6 or 7 years, where we've gathered up to 500 people in Yakima, Seattle, Tacoma, to share best practices and equity supports. And our virtual events, all 4 of them, have reached about 700 people. We had 250 registered for today. So thank you for joining us. We know you're all very, very busy people. And I'm going to fast forward or not. Forgive me. Has anybody ever had any technical issues with Zoom before? Because this is my first time ever having a technical issue. There we go. Now I'm in business. All righty. So today, as you saw in the agenda, we're going to be talking about adult learners. We have 3 amazing panels with projects that WASAC has been very excited about engaging with and supporting. And we know these are just 3 examples of wonderful work going on across the state. It's a packed agenda. If you go to WASAC's website, wasac.wa.gov/pavetheway, you'll be able to review the bios of the panelists today. We're not going to read the bio of each one. And you'll be able to contact anyone you'd like to individually to get more information as well. In between each panel, we'll have Q&A. And since this is Zoom webinar, you can enter your question in the Q&A and you can raise your hand. And our amazing MC, Crystal, will pass the mic as you have questions. We're talking about adult learners, and these 3 projects are all pre-enrollment. So everything from how to identify adult learners to providing barrier busters. I like to think of these 3 programs as college access programs for adults. I think most folks are familiar with the state agency, the Student Achievement Council, but there's always a few folks who are new. We are a state agency, we're cabinet level. We have 9 council members representing all sectors of education and business leaders guiding our work, and we're laser focused on student success and increasing educational attainment for all Washingtonians. We do that through policy and research. We also manage a host of programs that are related to affordability, student success, and college access. Our attainment goal for the state of Washington, that 70% of working-aged adults have attained something beyond a high school diploma, is our North Star. And while we've been inching forward and making progress toward that goal, we have a lot of challenges, especially right now, and challenges to make sure that our own residents have the opportunity to be in that metric and have the opportunity to be competitive for our workforce. And so this is a slide looking at the fall enrollment. So one of the key challenges today during this recession is that it is different than past recessions, where as our unemployment rate went up, so did our enrollments as people wanted to retrain and get back to furthering and advancing their education. We saw a very significant drop in enrollments in our public colleges. We see a lot of changing in choices among students. That drop was concentrated in our community college sector, and we know that Hispanic and American Indian populations are not enrolling or are withdrawing at greater rates than other demographics. And we know that that is a significant concern because higher education is one way that we can help people during COVID to increase earnings and decrease the likelihood that they're going to be unemployed, help those that have been laid off get re-enter education and get retrained. So our strategic framework develops equity-focused solutions in enrollment and completion, both for our high school graduation population as well as returning adults, with keen attention to affordability and basic needs and student supports. So for our adult learners, we have almost 2 million people in Washington that are not enrolled, who are working age and do not have either a high school diploma, or they've accumulated some credits but not completed, or they haven't begun a post-secondary program of any kind. Last year in March, we launched College and Career Compass, which is a college readiness and navigation tool for both high school students and adult learners, although our outreach and our marketing has been laser focused on adult learners. This tool, Compass WaGov, you can check it out later. As we were talking this morning, multitasking actually doesn't work. It's not effective. So compass.wa.gov has three things. One, it allows users to search educational programs and pathways, to navigate guidance and content that is interactive and prepares adult learners and high school students with the questions they might want to be asking campuses. And then third, connecting them directly to the campuses. So far, we've had 137,000 users of the tool in the almost 1 year that it has been active. All of the campuses, I forgot to mention, we have 55 campuses that are participating in College and Career Compass, and all of them have been asked to complete a self-assessment where they think about how are their policies and their practices addressing some of the common barriers for adult learners. This is not a monolithic group. I mentioned 2 million adults without post-secondary, but there are some considerations in our systems and our policies, as well as what might be the circumstances of each individual that campuses can think about how to respond. With that, I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. Hopefully, I won't have any trouble getting right back in. We have several policy consultants that we've been really fortunate to have at the Student Achievement Council who are students. And they are providing their perspective, their insights, not just sharing their stories, but really rolling up their sleeves and helping us shape the work and go forward. And today we have Alex Markley and Natasha Lewis. Alex is a student with the Evergreen State College pursuing their master in public administration, I believe. And Natasha is working at Peninsula College in an amazing TRIO program, pursuing her Master's of Educational Leadership at WGU Washington. And we were talking the other day, and thank you for being willing to talk with the group a little bit, to share whether it's your perspective or just your thoughts with your depth of experience around what works well, what doesn't work well. I know, Alex, we were talking about some financial aid policies that actually related to when you chose to return to college. Do you want to share a little bit about that or anything else that you'd like to?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, referring to our earlier conversation, one of the things I thought was interesting about how the financial aid system benefited me as an adult was that once I turned 24, I was able to file my FAFSA as an independent, which completely changed my ability to access college. Prior to that, having to factor in contributions from my parents, which were non-existent at the time because they didn't have the means to support me, but the federal government believed that they did, even though I moved out when I was 18. I was, for all intents and purposes, completely independent in practice, just not in the perspective of the federal government. So, you know, waiting it out and turning 24, I actually ended up waiting until 25 because it coincidentally got a job at my college before becoming a student there. But that's what made it possible for me to go to college in the first place. But I had to wait for that to happen.
Right. The all-important financially independent regulation in the federal government. Natasha, similarly, when we were talking, you talked about one of the affordability policies that kind of tracked you into certain programs. You were working and hit a ceiling in terms of advancement. Do you want to share anything about that or anything else you'd like to say? It doesn't have to be about your own background.
Um, Thank you, Rochelle. Just regarding our conversation, I'm just reflecting on the question. You know, you're looking at right now a high school dropout. You're looking at a young woman who had her first child at 16 years old. You're also looking at a woman who married at 16 years old and was married to an addict, a cocaine addict. So all of the barriers and the obstacles that come with being a teen mom, all of the obstacles that come with dropping out of school and getting married at an early age and not knowing anything about life whatsoever. Needless to say, you know, I had a hard time of it. I finally got my GED, obviously, and you know started to get out there into the workforce once I left that relationship. Then at the time, then a single mom of four. I would start jobs at entry level, and then I would work my way up. To give you an example, with Farmers, right before I got to Peninsula College, I started off at Farmers Insurance cleaning the office. I was the janitor pretty much. And then the agent came out in a tizzy. He needed to meet a number and then asked if I could cold call. I'm like, I could do whatever you want me to do, right? So, you know, when it was all said and done, I left that position as office manager with my insurance licenses. So, you know, what sparked me to go back to college was hitting a ceiling every single time. Every job I would go to, they would see my potential and then tell me, well, we can't promote you because you do not have a degree. You know, I got tired of seeing my family suffer. You know, I was tired of disappointing my parents because they had such high hopes for me. And you know I just made a decision that you know okay I'm going to be the first person in my family to obtain a college education, but not only that, I also have a goal to be the first doctor in my family. So you know I made that decision to go to college, and when I did, I ran into obstacles immediately. I had to be on assistance, of course, food stamps, TANF, and all of that. But because I was on food stamps, they didn't want me to pursue a bachelor's degree. I had to do a prof tech certificate or an AA, and they just wanted me back in the workforce. They had no empathy or care about me wanting to pursue education. So I did what they asked. I got my AA in addiction studies because that was the only degree that I qualified for at the time. And then I knew I didn't want to stop there. I knew I wanted to go and get a bachelor's degree. So I cast my lots. I took a chance and said, I don't care what they say. If I have to, you know, get off of assistance in order to achieve my bachelor's degree, God is going to make a way. God is going to provide. So, and he did. I was able to, of course, go on, and now I'm in my master's program. So, you know, yeah, it's definitely a struggle as an adult learner.
Natasha, thank you. You're so inspirational. Thank you for sharing. Alex, you mentioned you worked for your campus before you enrolled. What do you think about the engagement that that provided you, and you know thoughts on that related for adult learners who sometimes feel that they might not fit in?
I would say the circumstances that brought me to working for Evergreen before becoming a student kind of entirely made my experience there. For context, I had applied for a student position around the time I applied to the college and was accepted, then realized there was no way I was going to be able to afford out-of-state tuition because I just recently moved to Washington, although not for college reasons. And I decided I needed to wait the year in order to get residency. As it turned out, the student position was with the academic dean's office, and that position had been created to fill in for someone who was on maternity leave, just kind of managing the front desk during that period. Unfortunately, something happened to that person. They weren't able to return to the position. And about a month or two into working as a student in that first quarter, I was supposed to start because they were allowed to retain me, but they weren't able to continue until I was officially enrolled. But they ended up being able to offer me a temporary staff position, and being able to work inside the academic dean's office before becoming a student allowed me to build so many different connections with faculty members, staff members in academic advising, registration and records, meeting folks in admissions to go ahead and go over my financial aid package. It gave me direct contact with every single resource within the college community that I wouldn't even have known about had I not become a staff member. And in fact, going into my first class as a freshman, I ended up kind of playing in-house advisor for all of the other younger students who had no idea how to access these resources that existed on campus. It's actually even mentioned in my faculty evaluation for that quarter, where my faculty member outright mentions Alex ended up providing a great professional resource in connecting other students to services on campus in the classroom environment. And so I would say it was a really atypical experience, and particularly at Evergreen, where it's very easy to sink without connection to the right resources because of how broad and open the environment is. Had it not been for that connection through that job, I think I wouldn't have done nearly as well as I did at Evergreen.
Makes me think of work study for adult learners.
Yep.
Natasha, can you offer any final words as we get our hearts and minds around your story and the hundreds of thousands of others that are out there that could benefit from education?
Sorry, I was on mute. I have to say that, if there are anyone in the audience that executives in education, administration, even view as opposed to like viewing your employees, I'd have to say that please accept people for who they are. My greatest challenge, first of all, moving to Washington was the need to assimilate, or feeling like I needed to assimilate in order to be taken seriously. As you know, you probably have guessed, like, I'm from Texas, so I have a deep Southern accent that I literally need to change when I'm talking to colleagues, when I'm on a platform like this. Every now and then my dialect pops out. But when I first got here, I didn't know that I needed to change the way that I spoke in order to be taken seriously. So, I just want to say, just allow people to be their authentic self. And especially adult learners that are coming back, listening to their, what their basic needs are, and then providing resources. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
That's excellent advice. And I love your Texas dialect. Uh, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint on the first try. And thank you again, Natasha and Alex. Really, really great way to kick off our session today. Really appreciate your willingness to share. I told you we were lucky to have policy consultants and two of 5 wonderful people that we have. So we're going to move on to our first panel. This is in North King County. I'd like to welcome Inez Olive, Desiree Hill. Inez is the outreach guru of Shoreline Community College. Desiree is a student. Charlotte Gavell with United Way of King County, overseeing college success and housing. And Fabian Fuentes, a benefit hub coordinator with United Way of King County. Welcome, panelists. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Rochelle. Thanks for having us and supporting us getting the word out about the partnership that we're embarking on right now. So as Rochelle said, my name is Charlotte Gavelle, and I'm joined by some really important partners in engaging adult learners in North King County. So together we're working on an initiative supported by WASAC to pilot supports for adult learners in our region. The partnership is between Shoreline Community College and the United Way Benefits Hub to ensure that adult learners in our region who are engaging with higher education are supported in access, enrollment, and retention. The goals of this pilot are to develop a sustainable adult learner ecosystem, expand efforts to provide an equity-focused enrollment supports for adult learners, and develop a learning agenda to scale efforts statewide. This will be achieved by identification, primarily by Shoreline Community College outreach and events, enrollment in partnership with school offices and the on-campus benefits hub, and retention of adult learners through basic needs supports provided by the benefits hub. We know that education is an important pathway out of poverty, and increasing enrollment and completion for students in our region is a really big part of our regional response to the current economic realities that we face. But for many students and adults who are re-engaging with higher ed or engaging for the first time, that reality can have a lot of real barriers to achievement. So by coming together, we're creating an environment to invite students to embark on a supported journey, and really to bust those barriers that Rochelle mentioned earlier on. So I'm now going to hand it over to Inez Olive. And Inez, could you start us out with sharing why this work is so important, as well as a little bit of history of how we got started?
Yeah, definitely can. Thank you again, Charlotte, for the introduction, as well as Rochelle. Excited to be here. I think, as you mentioned, maybe we go back and to the beginning of this project where it really was prompted, which really prompted the pilot and why this work is so important. To help with this, I wanted to share some information that will be insightful. And really the work started when the college campuses went to remote operations in mid-March. Remote operations impacted adult learner outreach and recruitment greatly because our work is often embedded in the community. When we consider vulnerable populations such as BIPOC and first generation communities, outreach is often done through community events and centers, for example, libraries, and it might be at food banks or different rec centers in the area. As a recruiter, the task then became, how do we do effective outreach in a virtual setting? Given in March, I, like many of my peers, was new to Zoom. I was not sure how we could still reach out to communities, especially during the pandemic, when thousands of people in King County alone had their employment impacted by the pandemic. Added, Boeing also just announced numerous layoffs. What made sense to me then and still holds true now is, as a college system, we needed to present a unified approach. So when you consider adult learners who pre-COVID have a lot of competing priorities in their lives, then factoring in the pandemic, thinking of parents having to help their children with distance learning, just like I am doing right now, the capacity to consider education is non-existent. So rather than placing the onus of navigating several outreach events online to learn about programs on students, I proposed hosting one virtual event with general funding information that applies to every campus and provide the opportunity to connect with multiple colleges in one single event. This proposal allowed for a student-first approach in outreach. Through relationship building, we were able to connect with a few colleges to form an unofficial adult learner network who focused on developing outreach strategies for adult learners using worker retraining funding. It started with a group of 8 community and technical colleges from Snohomish to South King County and has expanded to Pierce, Franklin, and Benton counties. The College Network hosted the very first event in May of last year, and we had around 40 participants, which is a pretty big deal because pre-COVID, it was hard to get some traction with getting adults to come to in-person events. So having 40 participants attend a worker retraining event online was a big deal and was worth celebrating. You know, it was about that time when we realized that this type of outreach works for adults and partnership was key. When Boeing announced their layoffs, the same group of colleges once again responded in partnership with Employment Security to offer an industry event targeted to Trade Act eligible individuals. Now, since May, our network has hosted somewhere around 6 or 7 events, with most of our events, with our most recent event happening in January. In this past month, that event, we had 560 individuals register, and every single one of those individuals was receiving unemployment benefits. That event registration and turnout signified the need for adult learner outreach is great. I like to say that our network found a formula for effective outreach, but really, as we look ahead and hearing the stories that we've heard from the students earlier today, that the next phase is really looking at onboarding. And in traditional outreach and recruitment, work typically stops at admissions, but when we work with adult learners, it's that understanding that retention goes hand in hand with outreach and recruitment. Unfortunately, through the WASAC pilot, Shoreline can expand our support to adult learners through collaboration with a community partner. And Shoreline has an existing relationship with United Way King County through the Benefits Hub that is located on our campus. And through this relationship, we've been able to participate in this pilot. As a pilot, we hosted our first event in January as well, and we partnered with the King County Library System, Washington State Opportunity Scholarship, and our college foundation to provide a comprehensive paying for college session that focused on different funding options and highlighted financial aid completion. As a team, we are hyper-focused on FAFSA and WASFA completion. So as a follow-up to our event, we developed a system where we would reach out to students 10 days and 45 days after the event and provide the opportunity for that person to connect with a benefit hub coach to get one-on-one financial aid support. Really, this pilot allows us to better serve adult learners throughout their educational journey. The most important factor, I think, to share is for effective outreach to be successful, the key is partnership. And it's not just partnership with other college partners, but also community and industry partners, especially now as we're looking at finding ways to provide just-in-time strategies to continue to support our workforce. Thank you.
Thanks, Inez. Now, Fabian, with the Benefits Hub, I'm wondering if you could share a bit more about how a community organization can increase the institutional capacity to retain students through basic needs supports provided through the Benefits Hub.
Yes, thank you, Charlotte, for introducing what I'll be talking about. So yes, I will be talking about how a community organization can increase institutional capacity to retain students through basic needs supports, which I wanted to talk a little bit about the United Way Benefits Hub for those of you who may not know. And so I'll talk a little bit about the Benefits Hub and then talk about how that is incorporated into the pilot, and then go from there. So the United Way Benefits Hub program is a partnership with the United Way of King County and local community and technical colleges around the King County area. There are about 10 campuses in the King County area that have a Benefits Hub. And through the Benefits Hub, students can receive financial support, which includes meeting their basic needs. So whether it's by connecting students to emergency financial grants, providing financial coaching, like exploring different financial literacy topics, assistance with FAFSA and WASPA navigation, housing assistance. So if students are, behind on rent, mortgage, or need moving costs, providing food access. So we do have some food pantries, and then we also connect individuals to like food banks and other food resources as well. And then we also provide free tax preparation, and we also connect individuals to public benefits. So that can be like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as EBT, Orca Lift, healthcare, and many more. So all this is an effort to retain students and increase completion rates. I did include a diagram pictured to the right. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this, it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And these are the things that individuals need to essentially reach their goals, in which you could put college completion at the very top of the triangle where it says self-actualization. And then all the things below that are essentially what an individual needs to reach that goal. So as you can see, this could be things like food, housing, and so forth, in which these are some of the things that we can support with. And one thing to consider is that some of these financial tools are non-academic, but these could definitely help reduce costs in some areas to redirect funds to pay for school. And so with this adult learner regional pilot, we are extending some of this outreach to prospective students or adult learners, so they have the resources to enroll and complete a post-secondary education. So similar to what Inez was talking about, we did have an event a couple weeks back focused around paying for college. And this was in partnership with the King County Library System, Shoreline Community College, the United Way Benefits Hub, and the Washington State Opportunity Scholarships. So this event was an opportunity to have campus and off-campus organizations share their financial resources available that could help individuals with enrolling in post-secondary education, as well as staying in school once they are enrolled. So we are also planning to have additional workshops, which will provide adult learners the opportunity to increase their financial literacy. And then as part of this pilot, like Inez mentioned, we are inviting adult learners to meet directly with our Benefits Hub coaches to provide basic needs supports and financial resources like FAFSA, WASPA, navigation, financial coaching, public benefits, and other financial resources as well.
Thanks, Fabian. Now I'm going to hand it over to Desiree Hill, who is a student and is going to share more about her experience. So Desiree, I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit more about your engagement with Shoreline Community College and the benefits up there.
Sure, thank you so much. My name is Desiree, and thank you to the other guest student speakers to share that very relatable experience and all that success. So happy to be a part of this and be able to give back. My story essentially is just a little personal background. I was working for Lyft all of 2019, and I clocked a total of 4,000 hours for the calendar year, which is about 75 a week, and I only made $4,000. I was rear-ended off the clock in August of 2019 with broken teeth. I wasn't able to work until I recovered and essentially dissolved my apartment and wasn't sure what to do. I attended an orientation at Workforce Development in October of 2019, and I decided on dental hygiene, the highest paying wage there, basically offered, which I had no idea what I was getting into, none. As a first generation student, I had no idea what that was going to look like. It's very competitive. I was enrolled in classes the following week. Basically, I had been given a voucher for a room to rent, and I had no school supplies. It was sort of an outside organization that had found a voucher, and I started going to the hub. It was available on campus. I started to wander like around campus and know I was going to be going to school, and I met Liz. She has worked there the entire time, and I'm still in contact with her. I got a binder, I got some food, and I would often land at the hub really stressed out because I was injured. I got a lot of support there. I was confused. I was struggling with classes and everything. The screens, the projector screens would hurt my eyes because of the concussion. So many issues. I would just sort of land at the hub, and it was like a place for me to just grab a snack, which I had total food insecurity at the time. I shared about the hub with others, and I did see a lot of other students flooding that area to just grab a snack, to meet for appointments. I applied for services on campus. Shoreline has a foundation that helps with emergencies. I was awarded a housing scholarship and student loans. I met with Greg from the hub to work out a financial budget because I didn't know how finances were going to look because it's tight. It's really tight. Even though I have this housing scholarship, it's temporary. And like everyone mentioned, the financial piece is everything when it comes to being successful. I met with Denise for tutoring on multiple occasions. I was struggling to adjust to college. I have essentially some college and an 8th grade education and a GED. So those services were available at the hub, which was neat and really helpful. I met with Liz for taxes. And I still came in for food and support. With COVID-19, housing insecurity began. There were some issues at the college, and my scholarship got rocky because of some issues there. And I met with Liz and Denise about possible United Way funding. And I have kept in touch with Liz throughout the stay-at-home order, and actually got rental assistance to move out when my scholarship ended. So I'm just like one of these people like that's uniquely been, I'm convinced that I would be unable to be where I'm at today, doing well. I have all A's over halfway through the quarter, facing a lot of more difficult classes. They just keeps increasing, the difficulty increases. And I just feel completely supported. And so, yeah, I could just rant and rave, but I wanted to give back today. So I really appreciate being asked. And if there's any way that I could give back, please contact Fabian or Charlotte to get a hold of me. Thank you again.
Thanks so much, Desiree, for sharing a bit of your student story. I know that it was a lot to pack into the constraints of this webinar. So appreciate you sharing. If we have a couple of moments, I do want to open it up to the, it looks like 149 participants in this webinar, and just ask if you can put in the chat or raise your hand. And we're really curious. This has been somewhat of an opportunity to pivot and try something new, and curious what you're doing to engage adult learners and engage students in your community right now to respond to the current needs. Or how are you reaching out to current or prospective students to connect with supports? So we're curious to hear from you.
Thank you, Charlotte, Inez, Fabian, and especially Desiree. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, just see what I'm actually not able to see the Q&A, but which is handy. But yeah, maybe just one question so that we can move to the next panel, or one sharing be great. And we'll also have time at the end.
One question that did come in through the question and answer was, can Benefits Hub offer supports to individuals who are not yet students? And I would say the Benefits Hub model was really originally created in, sorry, there's a lot of noise going on right here. Was originally created back in 2016 before we were in the current situations that we're in. And so it was created to engage students currently enrolled. And so recently we've kind of embarked on this adventure with Shoreline Community College to see how the same supports can be applied to support students through their enrollment. So I would say it's not kind of broad and scaled out yet, but or necessarily do we have plans to do that at this time, but we won't turn away folks that are prospective students at any of the campuses, and we'll do our best to serve them.
Mm-hmm. That was part of what we thought was interesting in this project, is getting folks like Desi talking to prospective students and reaching into their community to encourage. So I look forward to hearing more results from you as the project continues. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go to the next presentation, which is providing pre-enrollment coaching in Pierce County. And for this presentation, we have Dr. Daryl Kane and Mike Wark from Pierce College, Carrie Lockhart from Inside Track, and Jack McKenzie from College App, Adult Prospect Pipeline. I mentioned that we kicked off College and Career Compass this past year, and our goals, besides continuing to expand Compass and engage with more campuses and include more pathways, we really wanted to make sure that we're testing something that will help us reach and motivate those who need the most help and are impacted by the current crisis. So we wanted to leverage partnerships and systems that we've developed and test some concepts in the workforce area. And this project is focused on Tacoma and Pierce County. So why Pierce County? It happens to be the place where I live, which has nothing to do with why Pierce County, but I'm grateful to be on the ancestral lands of the Puyallup Nation and to live in such a beautiful area. And we know that in Pierce County, the unemployment rate is higher than the state's average. And in fact, 60% of adults in Pierce County do not have an associate's degree or above. And while just over a third of the population has only a high school diploma or less, for those who are unemployed, it's over half. And among those who are unemployed in the region, there are gaps by race and ethnicity in their educational attainment. Almost 2/3 of unemployed Hispanic Latinx individuals in Pierce County have a high school diploma or less as their educational level. And yet we have amazing pathways and quality institutions in the area that are standing ready. And these 8 campuses, 9 if you count the Pierce colleges as individual institutions, are a coalition of caring campuses that have come together to partner with us in this initiative. We've worked with College App this past year in the marketing that we've done for adult learners, and we've known about and been connected to Inside Track for quite some time. They're doing work with several institutions in Washington. They presented at our Adult Learner Summit that we had a few years ago, and we're super excited to take advantage of their coaching expertise in this project. So I'm going to turn it over to Carrie Lockhart.
Thanks, Rochelle. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate everybody taking the time to come and learn more about how we can serve adult learners in Washington State. And so we are super excited about this partnership that is officially just now kicking off, and really working within the state and with the partners and with College App and with WSAC and Compass, the Compass tool that was developed last year. And essentially trying to find the adults because it's not like the high school students, where a lot of the times the traditional pathways that are with an SAT or an ACT test, and people go and mine those and have campus visits, if you will. It's really saying, how do we take some of the data that College App is able to mine and find adult students who have a desire to finish their degree or go back to school to increase their opportunities for their career prospects. And so, helping reach out to those students, helping find those adult students, but then also, helping create the awareness around a lot of the opportunities that are available, like the hub, the resources, and helping navigate those pathways that sometimes seem very intuitive to a lot of us who have gone to college, but then really can be a challenge for navigating those pathways and getting into school or back into school. A lot of people say, why Inside Track? Who is Inside Track? And, what do they have to offer? And so that's why I like to kind of, really couch us in the fact that we have been we've coached over 2 million students all over the country. For over 20 years now, we have coached students in any type of different program, adult students, traditional students, online, on campus. But our coaching approach and methodology is very holistic and developmental, and yet it has also been independently verified through the Bettinger-Baker study that was done at Stanford. And so it really has, positioned us well to be able to not only provide direct coaching services to institutions and working with their students, but then also helping build internal capacity. So the next, the thing that we like to call out a lot in terms of our coaching-based solutions is that we're really looking to identify that critical point in the student life cycle of where the need is most. We want to make sure that any of our coaching-based solutions that we're partnering with institutions or with folks across the state like WSAC really are intended to supplement and enhance, but not duplicate, because we all want to create more efficiencies and more effectiveness in serving students and helping them navigate. We also are able, because of the conversations that are proactive outreach and connecting with students on a very relational basis, but then helping them move forward, we're able to glean a number of insights that we share back with our partner institutions and back with all of our partners, so that we can help them better identify what the barriers are for what's really creating that hiccup, if you will, for students basically coming back in. I mean, what was talked about earlier in just the FAFSA and how students couldn't apply for a FAFSA on their own as adult learners unless you're 24. So those are the kind of barriers that we'd like to really help highlight. And then, looking at measurable results. We want to make sure that anything that we're doing is measurable. And finally, leveraging technology. I think especially we found with COVID, a lot of times people see chat bots, they receive emails, but it's that personal outreach, especially now, makes a huge difference when we're talking to students and we're saying, we're here to help you find the resources to move forward. And a lot of times they're not responding to emails, but they're also responding to text messages. So we'll say, we might be calling, but students won't pick up the phone because they're like, who is this calling me? It's another spam call. But if we text them and say, hey, I'm here as a resource, as a coach to help you move forward, now they'll pick up the phone the next time we call. So those are some of the tools that we're able to leverage. And I'm going to pass it back to my partner. Jack, I think you're on the phone and you can share a little bit more about what College App is able to do.
Great, thanks, Carrie. We're honored to be in this session with 140 professionals from Washington who are trying to find and help and train adults. It's great. Thank you for allowing us to be part of it. Our approach that we've been working specifically with Rochelle on at WASAC is to allow her, WASAC, and institutions cast a wider net of people who want education, but not so wide that that net becomes untenable. It becomes too expensive. It becomes hard to manage. The CRM can't deal with it. Somewhere in between is the control that an institution would want to be able to create an outreach program. And the way we do that is through some proven methodologies that allow us to create predictions. And it turns out when we did a survey in Washington late last spring, early summer, We surveyed more than 6,000 people across the state, all walks of life, everyone 18 plus. Our focus is purely on adults. About 80% of people said they weren't interested in more education for whatever reason. But when asked the question, do you intend to get more education or training in the next 2 years? Only about 20% of people said yes. But the emphasis on that only means there are 20% of adults in Washington who want and intend to, in some way in their lives, to get more education and training. And it's our goal to help institutions find those 20 to 25% of people for whom a message will be meaningful, for whom outreach will feel as though it makes sense, and for whom, many of whom have been overlooked by other methods, have been overlooked, frankly, by life, by choices they made earlier, and now we can help you find them. Intending to get education is great. The way to help specific institutions is to even winnow that down even a little further. So we ask about institutional preference. And the preference is community college, vocational technical, public or private 4-year. And we also ask about interest in a hybrid education model, some in person, some online, or all online. That was a little more interesting pre-pandemic. We look forward to the time where that becomes an interesting question again. And in that survey, there was something that emerged in Washington and in other states that we've done it. In that, because we aren't looking backwards, because we're not trying to model to a student body of 3 years ago or 4 years ago and say, here's our student, and now let's go get more of those types of students. We're looking forward. And so what we're able to capture is the demand among traditionally underserved populations. In our survey in Washington, 43% of African Americans who we asked the question, do you intend to get more education, said yes. And so that number, 41% of Hispanics. So those numbers go into our models that allow us to bring forth this unmet demand among underserved populations, and then essentially serve those to the institutions so they can reach out and begin to break down all those barriers that we've heard about today, whether it's how you speak or what your accent is, or the difficulties you've had with other processes. We're reaching out to people who have been underserved tells them that they belong, and that's a really important step. And we're thrilled to be part of this.
Thank you, Jack. So as Jack mentioned, we've been working this past year, and we've pulled files using College App of folks that are eligible for the Washington College Grant or appear eligible for the Washington College Grant, and who appear likely to be responsive and interested in post-secondary education. And we've sent email using WASAC administrative email data sets, using College App email, and worked with Madcap Marketing here in Tacoma to engage in digital social media and search ads, etc. We've had great success. In fact, the February click-through rates, if you're a marketing person, have been in excess of 7%. So very, very strong results. This has included statewide outreach for College and Career Compass, as well as regional outreach that include the logos of the participating campuses in Compass. For this project in Pierce for coaching, we took this existing campaign and modified it to make sure that the language is encouraging folks to complete a contact form, to raise their hand to get coaching, and to acknowledge those 9 institutions in the area that they're familiar with. And that and so I'm going to give you a quick example of an ad that's going to be served up over social media using the College App data. So we found that the not only the power of the college app data, but the familiarity with local colleges has probably combined to lead to really strong response. So using College App, and Jack, you provided the Pierce County files to our marketing firm. Don't know if you want to comment on the kind of makeup or size of that file.
Yeah, I believe the eventual file was, we included a few more zip codes, and I think it was a little bit more than 400,000 people, all of whom within our database had a high probability of intent to enroll.
Right.
And because of the nice variance in the institutions, we didn't worry too much about the community college, vocational, technical, or four-year.
Right.
We were focused mostly on hitting the people who were most likely to say yes to the question, do you intend to get more education?
And for this project, while we have coaching at the ready and 9 campuses at the ready, we really need folks to raise their hand, that 20 to 25% that might be interested, to trust us and raise their hand. So as a part of the project, we reached out to 50 employers and 35 community-based organizations, equity-focused, workforce-oriented, community-based organizations, to say, hey, we're doing this. Please help us spread the word, share it with your employees, share it with your clients, and got some great response. And I'm so excited to say that this morning we sent our first file of folks that did raise their hand yesterday, our first day, where we sent our first email. The social hadn't even started yet. So that it helped me sleep a little bit last night. And then Inside Track will take those contacts and.
Yes, thanks, Rochelle. Yes, we're planning, once we receive those feeds, then our coaches are at the ready and they reach out, again, proactively, email, text, phone, any way to engage and really assess where that student is, what their interest is, and then be able to pass them off to their appropriate resource at the appropriate campus that really aligns with their career interests.
Yep. And we're using the back end of Compass as our communication device with the Inside Track and with the campus outreach representatives that are at the ready. So it will be a very swift and streamlined process.
With our goal to get more enrolled.
Exactly.
Rochelle, before you move on, we have a few questions in the Q&A.
Great.
First is from Bonnie Becker asking if the college app data is available in a report.
Well, we haven't created a quote unquote report on the data. The data from the surveys makes its way through machine learning and other data science techniques, which are way over my head, but make their way into a database that allows us to create the probability scores for those questions: intent, preference for institutions, preference for online versus hybrid, and then score the probability of everybody else beyond the 6,000 people who we surveyed on their likelihood to how they would answer those questions. So the information is embedded in the database at the macro level. From the database, reports can be created, absolutely. So that's probably a separate conversation, but
I'll offer myself. I don't want to offer.
Sort of, yes.
Don't want to offer Jack without talking to him, but if anybody's interested in contacting me to set up a time to kind of walk through what are the needs in your area and what do the data tell us, I'd be happy to do that. Do we have another question, Crystal?
Yes. Geoff Foy said, like Bonnie, I would also be, oh, sorry, we answered that. Next question is from an anonymous attendee. How were you able to find the students who are interested in pursuing higher education through College App?
So we conducted the survey among people, Washington State residents who we had email addresses for in the database. So we pulled from the database, surveyed those people, and because they came from the database, we knew a fair amount about their demographic and economic and education attainment before taking the survey. And then we take those results again, and then the machine learning creates the predictive algorithms. To answer Jeff's question, it's about 35% who prefer online only as of last May, online only. Much higher percent are open to and interested in some online, what we would call a hybrid model. Not many of our clients have been using that given the limited offerings that are going on right now with so much being online. But that may be an important question in the future. And it certainly has, based on the conversation today, has some relevance to people for whom online education is not only inconvenient, but possibly even impossible to achieve in either because of their access or because of their living situation, et cetera. So.
Right. So goes without saying, this is a large consumer marketing database that has been augmented with this additional methodology to try to find likely interested adults. Carrie, you?
Yeah, I just wanted to end on this note before I know we turn it over to Pierce for some specific details on the project, is that, you know, we talked a little bit earlier about the developmental proactive approach in working with students, especially with adult students who might not have been successful in their previous attempt at school. You know, there can be a lot of barriers in and around, can I do this? Are there resources available? Am I able to, you know, work through this and manage all the different commitments that are competing for my time, taking care of my children, working part-time or full-time? So addressing a lot of those barriers, helping understand and connect. I mean, I think there was a question earlier about adult students, you know, desiring to go to get their degree because they're looking to improve their opportunities for career. It is very career driven. And so that's, you know, being able to connect those dots and navigate through the system, find the resources, but then handing them off to the resources at the institution. As we've heard earlier too, there's a lot of resources at the institution. Sometimes students just don't know where to go to get them. So, you know, creating that bridge that will help students navigate that, and also listening to their lived experiences so that we're normalizing that this is okay to have these questions. This is okay to be afraid. You can do this. And so really giving them that position and that space to be able to move forward.
Thanks, Carrie. We had the opportunity to meet with the coaches and with Inside Track and share the details about the 9 institutions, and also some interesting aspects that are unique to Washington and Washington College Grant, et cetera. We're grateful to have so many campuses participating, both 2 and 4 year, and also really want to acknowledge the thought leadership that Pierce College specifically has provided to this project, including connecting with the community-based organizations that I mentioned. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Kane and Mike Wark.
Thanks, Rochelle. This is a tremendous partnership. I think it's just really great. And I want to echo what Carrie said about adult learners. They're not like the traditional students that we're able to track from SAT scores and send out stuff to, and we know where they are in high schools and you can reach out to them. It's harder to reach adult learners. And something that, so that's one point. Another thing that Rochelle mentioned was trust. And part of our thinking and part of what Dr. Kane and I are exploring is expanding and strengthening community partnerships, because people who work with adults who are in need of education, their clients trust them. And I think trust is part of the key to getting the message out about these kinds of services. So if trusted partners in community-based organizations can say, hey, you should check out Career Compass. They've got free coaching for you right now. I think that's part of what we're pushing right now, and that's really valuable. So I've been in public higher education in Washington State for about 30 years. I worked at the Evergreen State College, at the University of Washington, Tacoma, and now at Pierce College. And so, and in marketing communications and government affairs and recruitment focused efforts through all of that time. And a lot of the work, you know, we always talk about creating college going culture. You know, if we reach a student and it turns out that they don't come to the particular college we're representing and they go somewhere else, we consider that a success. And so that's sort of the basis of this program. But I have to say that more often than not, when we're doing recruiting, we do some partnerships, but generally each institution is doing their best to reach out and coordinate on their own. To have the Washington Student Achievement Council come into Pierce County and do a coordinated effort to raise awareness among adults about the importance and the availability of college and to provide coaching. I've never seen anything like it. And I just applaud Rachel and the Washington Student Achievement Council for their leadership in developing this, and particularly for choosing Pierce County first. Just really pleased about that. You know, Carrie and Jack both talked about their services, and I just want to say that these are amazing partners. Inside Track is known nationally, has a very good reputation. Pierce College has actually partnered with them to help expand our capacity. And so I'm very pleased that they were selected to do this work. That's great. A few months back, we were in another Washington Student Achievement Council meeting with Rochelle and met Jack. He spoke a little bit about his services, and we learned that the database that he has is something we could tap into. So we actually purchased some addresses from him and used them to direct. They use predictive analytics to determine which of these addresses might be responsive. We got 500 hits in our CRM, which is pretty impressive response from a digital media campaign. So from our perspective, College App is a great partner as well. And it's wonderful that they're supporting this effort and also making that database available to us if we want to tap into it. And it's been pretty effective. With that, I'll pass it on to Daryl.
Okay, all right, well, thank you, Mike. Yes, I think as we think about this partnership, and just appreciate Rochelle even considering Pierce College should be a part of it. We recognize that, yes, there's definitely a challenge as we talk about how do we provide equitable opportunities and making sure that our adult learners are included in the conversation. And when we start thinking about the disproportionate number of students, Michelle showed a chart and talked about how certain racial groups are disproportionate in terms of receiving degrees or credentials. But we recognize that for Pierce County to be strong, it needs to be an inclusive effort. Therefore, we must address and spend time focused on where there's equity gaps. The other part of it, I'll just share with you as well, is that knowing that this is a collaborative effort, because if Pierce College went into this alone, we don't really have all the resources. We won't be able to spend the time. We don't have some of the scientific tools and resources due to some of the data mining that Jack spoke about. But because this is a collaborative effort, that allows us to spend more time focused on our priority, which is engaging with our students. And so once we get that handout, we can have more individual time, we can have the deeper conversations, we can have the high touch points. And therefore, we're able to leverage this opportunity to better connect where students need the most help. Also, too, I'm just excited because, you know, working with 9 other colleges and with this effort, because we create a pipeline. And when a student comes to Pierce College, they may say that, hey, I want to get my associate degree or there's a certificate, but knowing that also, too, we want to encourage them for other aspirations as we talk about the end result. what do you ultimately want to do? And if that's to a 4-year institution, then therefore we can do that handoff. So that collaboration, that in sync tuneness that we have with our 4 university allows that to be more efficient. It allows it to be more engaging, and it also allows students to have better contact and connection points. And so that's another important aspect of it. The next part I just mentioned as well within the partnership, because I often think about, been in multiple conversations and we were talking about the economic recovery. And the emphasis has been, how do we identify where there's the greatest needs and how do we help those that are most vulnerable? And recognizing that economic recovery has to have a lens of I guess, a focus on economics, but at the same time, focusing on where individuals don't have some of the social capital, the resources, the tools. And when we think about the service sectors, there's a disproportionate number of individuals that are in areas of hotel, restaurant management, the travel industries that have been truly impacted because of the pandemic. And now we're able to spend some time leveraging some of the data that we have and find out where are these individuals located, and also how do we best connect them to the resources that's going to give them the skills that they need to be employable. Also, as a part of that, at Pierce College, we also spend time talking about aspiration, because when individuals don't know, have access to certain information or resources, they may not have that aspiration. And so even though they may be in one of those fields or industries, we talk about what is it that you want to attain, and also in terms of generational change. Because a lot of times individuals in marginalized populations, they may only enter into certain fields that they have knowledge of because of their parents and grandparents, and which is fine. However, we want to give them resources to say, okay, here's some other opportunities, and being able to connect them as we talk about progressiveness and certifications to their associate and hopefully to their BA and further. But that's another opportunity we see that this partnership will allow us to do and strengthen that as well. And really, we just want to be able to build those bridges and connect those bridges when individuals don't have those, see themselves in those opportunities. So that's a summary of how Pierce College looks forward to working in collaboration and partnership.
Thank you, President Kane. I apologize. In my effort to unmute myself, I keep advancing the slide. Thank you. And so this project just started yesterday. So I know there's a question about outcomes, et cetera. Feel free to email me. We will be looping back with what did we learn, and what would we do differently next time, and where do we want to expand this? So I'm going to have to move to the next panel. I apologize, Eric. I know there's a question here. But let's go to Spokane. Jody Brandt from Greater Spokane Incorporated has been working with us on a micro grant, very interesting project that is one of a kind in our state. Jody?
Great, thank you, Rochelle. I am Jody Brandt, as Rochelle just indicated. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide for me. So Greater Minds is an initiative of Greater Spokane Incorporated, which is our region's business development organization. And our work really started in 2014 when our board of directors adopted an education attainment goal of reaching 60% education attainment for our Spokane region. For individuals who had high quality certificates or degrees. We were currently right around 40%, and our goal is to hit that 60% by 2025. Right now, we're currently at about 52%, so I'm hopeful that we'll make that in 4 years. But we really do this as a business-based approach. And so we work with our local human resources departments of our member businesses, and then work with their employees to help promote education attainment. We do know that there's about 86,000 adults in Spokane County who have some college but no degree. And so as a business organization development, we decided to take that business approach while partnering with our higher education institutions. And we launched that work in 2017 officially. So because of that work, we were approached by WASAC to pilot a micro grant to really see if addressing some pre-enrollment financial barriers could make a difference for these students that we were working with. So after meeting with not only WASAC, but our higher education partners to really discuss what they were seeing as those financial barriers and qualifications, we came up with this list of requirements kind of as a group effort. Because we knew that every school has a different threshold, financial base. So for instance, Eastern Washington University, you can register with a balance of $1,000. Community college, it's only $300. And those can be different again throughout all of our institutions. And so we launched this in May of 2019. And we received a total of 138 applications all the way through December of 2019. And we really relied on our higher education partners to promote this microgrant opportunity to their students who had some kind of financial hold, but then of course also using our Greater Minds database as well. But in total, we were able to approve 99 applications, which totaled 54,746, as you can see. But unfortunately, we did have to deny 39 applications. And that was mainly due to our requirement of we could not pay for prior financial aid or financial aid repayment, excuse me. So students who were attending at Eastern, Pierce College, South Puget Sound, Spokane Falls, and Spokane Community College all received microgrant funding. So what we really learned and what we know about these students, kind of the average debt owed was about $648. So really considering cost of going to school, that's a really small financial barrier that we're keeping these individuals from returning. 75 of our students were female and 41 were parents, and that was all self-reported within their data. I know the anticipated area of study is kind of hard to read, but kind of the two largest were kind of the not specified, but then the Associates of Arts direct transfer degree. So showing interest and a want to transfer on to a higher degree. And of course, the most common was tuition and parking fees. So initially, as of December 1st of 2019, we had 81% of the students who were approved indicate that they were going to re-enroll or had re-enrolled. But as you know, life goes on. By October, only 57% of those students had actually re-enrolled. But of those students who did enroll, we already know that 6 students have completed their degree or certificate, and we are expecting more students to be graduating this winter and spring term. And as you can see, 43 did not re-enroll. So overall, some of our key points of things that we learned, assisting with those small dollar financial barriers can make a significant impact on the student's ability to return. Having the institutions really buy in and help us promote this microgrant opportunity really helped us with the success rate of getting students who needed this financial help. And then even though the microgrant did remove an initial financial barrier, from our follow-up with students, we were finding that they were still having academic hurdles meeting that eligibility for future financial aid. So I wanted to share kind of some of the stories that we heard. So I'll let you kind of read through, but I did just get a really neat story or application this last week since I submitted my presentation. So I'm going to read that one to you. It says, I've been a CNA for over 10 years and I'm ready to further my education and proceed with my nursing degree. There's a dire need for nurses in our rural community. I've completed most of my prerequisites and would like to complete my studies before the pertinent classes expire. This grant will allow me to pay off my past due amount I owe to the college. With this assistance will allow me to get closer to my dream of becoming a registered nurse. And thankfully, her debt did qualify. And so her response to my outreach, letting her know that we'd be paying off her student debt, which was about $800 or so. was thank you so much. This is a great surprise. I cannot express to you how much this is going to help me accomplish my goals of continuing my education and becoming a nurse. I'll be calling the school on Monday and I can get back into classes ASAP. Once again, thank you. So again, just those small dollar barriers can make such a difference to students. So we were lucky enough to be able to kick off a second round of funding in November on behalf of WASAC. So thank you so much. So as of last week, we have had 12 students who have received micro grants. Unfortunately, we have had to deny 15 students because of ineligible debt. We really learned that really having that champion at an institution is key. The community college had changed some policies during the first round of the microgrant. And the second round, they were just unable to continue with that policy change. And so we are working really hard to reach as many students as we can. But overall, we really are looking at some additional potential funding sources to help with these students who had previously been in collections to help them pay off some of that incurred interest and debt that they're owed. So that was kind of really quick because I know we're running out of time, but happy to answer any questions or follow up with any additional statistics as well.
Jody, that was amazing. And thank you for your work on the micro grant. We know, we've, through your help, been able to help over 100 individuals get bust that barrier and get reconnected. You hear so much in the news about forgiving student loan debt, which is important, but there's a huge philanthropic opportunity for financial aid overpayments and repayments out there as well. So thank you for 3 examples of innovative projects across the state where WASAC has had the great fortune of being able to do our part and try to support these efforts, learn what we can, and then pursue funding to expand it or improve it or whatever it might be, especially for adult learners and adult learners of color across the state, who especially now. So big thank you to the panelists. What we will do regarding the Q&A that did not get answered today is anything that we don't finish today, we will email those individuals and make sure that those questions get answered. So Crystal, any other questions in the queue?
There's just one from an anonymous attendee, so we won't know their email, is how many of the 500 CRM hits were you able to convert to enrollment?
That was for Pierce.
Yeah, our data, we're in the process of a major data transformation here, so it's not easier for us to get to that data, but we're working on them. It's fairly recent, so hope to have the results soon.
And for anyone who has a question that we won't be able to answer because it's not showing who it is, that is my email, and I can certainly facilitate connecting you to any one of the speakers, answer questions, hear your thoughts, your feedback, your ideas, share what's going on that you know about and where we should go next. So I wanted to offer that. Any other questions in the queue or anybody want to raise their hand and speak? I'll stop sharing so I can actually see. Anything that you can see, Crystal?
On my side, everybody's saying thank you. Oh, we just got one from Mike Work that says, what kind of staffing support is in the hub at Highline from United Way?
Do we still have Charlotte or Fabian?
Hi, I am here, but wondering if you can repeat the question. Sorry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what kind of staffing support is in the hub at Highline from United Way?
Yeah, great question. So United Way provides some staffing support both through AmeriCorps members who provide a lot of the direct services and program capacity building. And then we also have intentional partnerships at all of the campuses, specifically at Highline, where you asked, we partially fund 2 staffing positions that act as kind of coordinators and managers for this work on campus to help kind of provide the support and capacity to move this work forward in partnership with the greater college campus.
Well, thank you. I see, just reading the earlier chats as well, that amazing conversation about our earlier student speakers. So that's wonderful. And if anybody has questions or feedback, please let me know, or anybody from the Student Achievement Council. I want to thank our 11 speakers today. Might have been a little overzealous in packing everything in 90 minutes, but thank you for your work, for your leadership, and for your contributions today. Look forward to continuing to partner together and help students. Thank you.